but I think all of y'all know that anyway, but thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, now we've got local issues to take on. We were supposed to have Robin Martinelli here tonight. She called me about 4:30 and said she was running 100-degree temperature and did not want to come and mess with y'all. It's not COVID, but she still didn't want to come. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But she did give me her phone number and said y'all can call her anytime. So if you would like to call Robin and talk to her, I've got her number and I'll give that to you. But we do have Alex Ward, who's also running. It's the 4th Commission District. And I'm going to let him talk, and then I'm going to give y'all a little bit more information. But let's welcome Alex.
And so first off, good evening. Thank you all so much for having me out here. When I started looking for a home, one of the things that really attracted me to Barrow County was less congestion, small town community feel, lower taxes. And after I moved in, so even when I was touring my house, I had neighbors coming up to me, introducing themselves to me, and I really liked that. I love that feel, that sense of community. And then after moving in, I started seeing all the growth that we're all experiencing, right? And I saw a bunch of rezoning notices going up around my house. And so I started digging, and I started looking at those rezoning requests. And I really tapped into my background as both business management as well as a contract attorney. And I started digging deep into those proposals and looking at those proposals. And one of the things that I recognize that growth is going to happen. You can't stop growth, and it is the cornerstone of change. But in looking at the rezoning requests, one of the things that bothered me was that a lot of the rezoning requests did not seem to match the characteristics of the surrounding properties. And in addition, when they did match those characteristics, in a lot of the cases, we weren't following our own zoning requirements that are contained in the Unified Development Code. For example, just the lot sizes. We were approving rezoning requests that had lot sizes smaller than what that rezoning district allows for. And so what got me into this race was the recognition that we needed somebody on the commission that can dig deep into those proposals, that can ask those important questions, that can say, hey, how is this going to affect our community? How is this going to affect our county? What effect is this particular provision in this proposal going to do for our community? And so while the county continues to grow, it's important that we have leaders in place that can make sure that that growth is guided through a smart, responsible way. Now, I mentioned earlier about that small town community feel, and as the county grows, I think it's important that we maintain that sense of community. I love driving down the street, waving to the car that goes past me, seeing my neighbors at the grocery store, taking friends that live in the county out to restaurants, and I want to maintain that. I think that is so important for us to keep as our county continues to grow, because it's something that makes our county, in my opinion, unique. Like I said, it's something that I was really attracted to. I love the fact that the guy came up to me as I'm touring the house to introduce himself to me. Equally as important is that as our county continues to grow, we have to make sure that our vital county services can keep up with the demand, that we are providing those county services with the resources. And when I talk about the vital county services, I'm talking about our law enforcement services. I'm talking about fire protection services, court services, road infrastructure, the core functions of government that we expect as county residents. I'll give you a little story. My sister and I were on Hill Creek Road a few weeks ago. We're traveling north. We're sitting at the light to cross 316. And I hear some cars honking their horn. I look over, and there's a car that is stalled in the travel lane on 316. Slightly after nightfall, their headlights start to dim and eventually go out. So he's sitting in the dark. So I immediately get out my phone, call 911. Well, I'm right near that Gwinnett County line, and so I get transferred to Gwinnett County, and I get put on hold. So I'm on hold with Gwinnett County, light turns green, we go across, I flip around so I can keep an eye on this driver, make sure that he's okay. I told my sister, I said, get out your phone, look up Barrow County non-emergency number and call them. And she did, and they immediately picked up. So I grabbed the phone from her, gave her my phone, told them what was going on. They said, appreciate it, the driver's already called us, thank you so much for calling in. Got off with them. A few moments later, I finally had Gwinnett County pick up. What's the location of the emergency? Well, it's actually Barrow County, but I've already talked to them on another line, so I think we're good. Click. Didn't even get to finish my sentence, hung up on me. And I thought back, and a few years before, I had to call for an accident in Atlanta, and I got put on hold in Atlanta. And back then I thought, hey, this is great. I love the fact that I live in Gwinnett County, because I don't get put on hold when I call 911. And I realized at that moment that Gwinnett County has become Atlanta. And I don't want Barrow County to follow in those same footsteps. It's important. It's important that as we grow, we make sure that we are providing the resources so that we can maintain our vital infrastructure. I am running to be a voice of the community as we continue to grow. Because without smart, responsible growth, then our community is going to become like every other suburban and urban community that is focused more on density and less on quality of life. I am Alex Ward. I'm a candidate in the special election for Barrow County Commission District 4. So now,
District 4 questions. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm Clay Kelly. I live in District 4. Wanted to call. I'm going to ask you a question. Well, I'll ask this question first. Do you intend, being that the general primary is coming up in March, do you intend to also qualify for the general primary? Even though the election will happen before that.
I do. I intend to qualify. I've been joking about it that this is almost a trial run, and we're going to flip right back around and do it again right through May. I did not put any dates on my signs so that I can just keep them out and keep them.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Oh, my, bunches. Yes, Mike.
One of the things that I've noticed that's gone on for years in Barrow County is every so many years, the county commissioners pay a lot of money for a land use map. And land use map, really don't know, it decides where you can build residential, what should stay green space, what should, go here and there. However, that land use map has never meant anything because every time a rezone notice comes before the commissioners, they have to okay it, even though it does not meet the ramifications of the land use map, because if they don't, they get sued. So what you're saying about, I've been here since 1982, I'm seeing Barrow becoming Gwinnett. And that is the key thing, is that land use map is useless.
Right,
It's
and
never meant a thing. So why do we keep, I've told commissioners in my past, go to Oconee County if you can't figure out how to do it. Why are they doing it right?
right, and so that's one of the things that that I want to really hammer down and focus on. So when a developer comes in and wants to develop land, or when somebody's trying to sell their property to a developer, as you pointed out, there are certain things that we can't do because we will get sued. But one of the things we can do is we can use our zoning, we can use that future land use map. The county, the school board has pointed out numerous times that they have based their forecasting, their planning off of that future land use map. And then the county just comes in and we do a rezone request that includes a future land use map amendment. There's actually a property right now, right at the corner of 211 and Carl Cedar, that they're going through the same issue. And I was actually going to be speaking about it at the county commission meeting in February, and they ended up tabling it to March. And they have requested, so the surrounding neighborhood is R1, which is low density housing, and agriculture. The request from the developer is R3 zoning with Innovation 316 corridor future land use map amendment. That doesn't make any sense. If you look at the future land use map, it says that Innovation 316 corridor is for areas that have direct access to 316. It is 4 miles away from the way the crow flies to Innovation 316 corridor's existing boundary. So my question is, why? And that's the thing that I want to dig into. Why are we doing that? Why not R1? Because R1 still allows that developer to develop property. But what it does is it maintains that lower density characteristic that matches the surrounding properties. And that's one of the things that we can do as commissioners to help guide that growth in that smart, responsible way.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
That's one of the things I was gonna ask you is if you get to the point that you're doing the seed and hopefully the next one, are you willing to work with the school system?
Absolutely. So I actually still volunteer in high school athletics. And so I believe that the schools really do help shape our community. Look, I grew up in Gwinnett County. I'm a proud graduate of Moorcross High School. And I've seen just since November, just since the election results in Gwinnett County, what has been happening with the school system there. And that has such a direct impact on the rest of the county. And so I would absolutely work with the county, with the school system, to make sure that we're helping them plan for the growth so that they know what they need, so that we can keep the schools properly sized, so that we can make sure that we're providing a quality education that's going to help attract that quality growth to Barrow County.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
So I've been a member of the Gwinnett County Police Department for 15 years, and I understand that. What are your plans for public safety in Barrow County as far as taking care of it? I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of us leave that are planning on leaving and trying to leave. We're 270 short in Gwinnett County. We're authorized 904, we're 270 short, and that county is hurting.
Right.
And as everything moves, Auburn's growing significantly. They're talking about doubling, tripling, quadrupling the population in the next couple of years. There has to be something there in place for fire and police to do that, and you need to pay some people to do that.
Absolutely, and that is one of the biggest issues that Barrow County is facing right now, is that, so Barrow County, you have the Sheriff's Department, and then you've got Winder, Statham, and Auburn Police. Barrow County is the lowest paid law enforcement in Barrow County. Sheriff Smith is losing officers, deputies that he's trained to Hall County, bilingual deputies that are getting paid $10,000, $15,000 more. Now, as a county commission, the only oversight that we have over the Sheriff's Department is the budgets. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that as the sheriff comes to us and says, hey, this is what I need to keep people, based on the growth that we're forecasting, this is what I need in order to be able to provide proper protection for the residents of Barrow County. I want to go through that proposal, and I want to make sure, again, relying on my background in both business management as well as a contract attorney, to look at that proposal and say, okay, here's what you've asked for. What can we do physically so that we're still fiscally responsible? What kinds of technology can we use to expand the capacity without, with keeping costs in check, so that he has the tools that he needs? And it goes the same for the fire department. I know that right now, so we're in the process of actually shifting. They've got one last ambulance that's being sold March 1st. And then that entire department, the ambulance service is actually going to be ran through the hospital. And what that has allowed the fire department to do is actually move an extra personnel to the engines and the trucks, so they can actually run with a 3-man crew on those. What they had to do in the past was they had to send an ambulance with a fire truck every time, just so they had enough people to operate the fire truck. The problem is they've got staffing issues as well. And it's not just the salary, but it's also the benefits. And so I want to look at, again, what proposals do you have? What do the studies say? And the county actually did just authorize a market study that's going to allow us to better see how are we competing with surrounding communities and with the private sector as far as compensation, so that we can see what do we need to do to be able to attract new staff, to keep the staff. And I want to work with those department heads to make sure that we are providing the resources that they need while being fiscally responsible and finding creative solutions where we can to expand capacity as much as possible through technology and through other unique solutions.
Okay. One more question. Charlie?
When you talk about zoning and density and things of that nature, I've been involved in the low-income housing industry in this county for 35 years. What type of proposal do you have to take your zoning or your county commission. Work with people at house support, because I'm here to tell you, Waffle House waiters and bench diggers, they can't afford this new apartment. And you have to have somebody write your garbage truck.
Yep.
And they can't do it when you kind of zone them out and price them out, and they move to the next county over, or the next county owner. The same thing will go for you police officers too. Because when you're talking about the sheriff's deputy not making enough money, he can't afford it for $100,000 charge on either. So what's your plan for that?
Absolutely. So obviously, a big issue that we're facing is something that we just heard about, and that's inflation, right? And that's something that we're going to continue to experience, and that's going to continue to put a strain on the housing market. But when we talk about the zoning, again, it's about matching the characteristics. We have areas in Barrow County already that do have that high density zoning. And so I want to make sure that when we approve new zoning requests, that we're doing it so that it maintains contiguousness, so that the areas next to existing zoning match what we have for new zoning. So we can still bring in that high density zoning, but we have to make sure that we're doing it in a smart way, that we're doing it, that we're putting it into an area where that's going to match that characteristic. I'm not saying that we should completely foreclose that high density zoning that will allow for those who make less to be able to afford to live in our county. Because that's obviously not what we want to do, because we want to make sure that we have the people here that can provide the services that we do all rely on. But to throw that high density housing right in the middle of an area that the future land use map sets aside as rural neighborhood, that's where we have issues. And that's where we need to be smarter about how we do it and say, hey, that doesn't match this area. That would be a better fit over here, where we've already planned in that future land use map for that high density growth.
Okay, Lynn, real quick.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, where's your law practice?
I actually operate out of my house. I focus only on small and medium businesses, so it makes it easier to cut down on overhead.
Got it. The other question is, and I need to talk to you about school system.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, take a while. The issue that I have that I want you to address for me is how are you going to work with local city governments and the county in terms of cooperation and teamwork, and also what is your position on Parks and Recreation in Barrow County?
So, great question. I'll start with the first part about the interplay between county and city government. I think it's pretty much an open secret that the members of the county don't necessarily get along with some of the leaders in some of our cities. Open secret. But what I believe in dialogue. I believe in conversation and just sitting down and talking to people. And one of the things that I would like to really see happen at the county level is for us, the county commission has a annual retreat where they sit down and they discuss what are our county policies going to be this year? What are we going to be focusing on this year moving forward as a county? I want us to do the same thing with our city leaders, because we need our city leaders, we need our state leaders, we need our federal leaders. I'm glad to see so many of our state representatives here tonight. But at the local level, we really need to sit down and we need to work with our city partners to say, okay, what are your guys' plans this year? What is your focus? What are you all looking at? Here's what we're looking at the county. And let's have a collaborative dialogue. We're not going to agree on everything. But right now, what I see as a big problem is that there's no dialogue. We send out the county manager, go talk to the city manager, and let us know. And you lose something in translation versus having our elected officials sit down together and say, hey, what are the issues that the residents of Winder are bringing to the city council members of Winder? And what are those same residents bringing to the county commission? And where can we find some parallel so that we can work more cohesively? Because I think that's a big problem. As to the Parks and Rec question, so all of the parks in Barrow County, except for Victor Lord Park, are all city parks. And one of the issues that I see is right now we have 20 to 30,000 residents south of 316 out of our 90,000 residents. So I'm a lawyer, mass not always lawyer things, but that's about a third of the residents are south of 316. The only county service south of 316 is a single fire station. There's no parks. There's no sheriff's substation. The only county service is that single fire station in downtown Bethlehem. And so I want to find ways for us to have some more passive green space so that we can have areas that we can provide park and leisure services to those Appalachian high school kids, those Heyman Morris middle school kids, those kids that are south of 316. They're not having to cross 316 to get to the Y, to get to Victor Lord Park, to be able to enjoy some green space and have a place that they can go and hang out after school together. So I think that that's a very important thing for us to look at, and there's ways that we can do that in a cost-effective way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.